Hello and welcome back to Own Your Peace. Today I am joined by one of my new favorite humans in my circle. I have Sari Cowsert. Cowsert? Did I get that right?
That's right.
Okay. We both have weird last names, so we have to play with them a little bit to get the
Yes.
pronunciation right. But I'm so excited because I really manifested Sari into existence in my sphere. I wanted to find other gals who were podcasting and putting themselves out there, and we kind of found each other in a podcasting group. And it's been such a fun friendship. I'm so excited to have her on the show. We even traded services so we can experience each other's magic, and that has been such a cool thing as well. Sari is a hypnotherapist, so it is a really cool thing where she takes you, if you don't think you're going to be hypnotized over Zoom, I guarantee you she will. And all of a sudden you're like, what is happening? It's so magical. I had the most beautiful experience with meeting with little Andy and having a really healing moment, which I'm sure we'll unpack and get into. But I'm so excited for you to meet this magical human. I know you're going to love her as much as I have. Sari, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you in this space.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey of how did you get into hypnotherapy? Like, what is the process that brought you here?
That is a lot, a deep, rich story we can get into. I
Let's
think
do
the
it.
thing that I've really just been enjoying talking about lately is the version of myself that you're getting today is vastly different from the woman that was sitting here, I would say 6, 7 years ago. And even before that, I was very sick with chronic fear, chronic anxiety, chronic panic. And my life looked very different. It was at my worst point, I was really debilitating with like up to 12 panic attacks a day.
My goodness.
And with that, I don't know if you've ever experienced a panic attack before, Andy, but like most people that haven't can't usually understand what's actually happening to someone that's going through it because all like rationality like goes out the window. Like
Right.
the way that your mind thinks, the way that you're feeling, the like stories that like you're creating in your head, the control that you have to create to feel safe is really insane. And that's ultimately what my life looked like, was dictating, how things needed to look. It was very much Sari's way or the highway because I needed to be in control of everything.
Right.
And if it wasn't, I had to have my husband, my mom, my sister, maybe a friend like around to support me like all the time. Um, in case something did happen. Especially by the time I had children, you know, panic attacks, a lot of the physical symptoms that you feel within your body, are like pain in your chest. A lot of people feel like they're having a heart attack. They go to the ER and they're like, oh, you're just having a panic attack. And even with that, my husband, he is an ER nurse and he would always tell me like, Sari, you're fine. You're not sick. And I'm like, he's like, the people at work are sick. You're not sick. Nothing's wrong with you. And I'm like, how can you say that? I'm having 12
Yeah.
panic attacks a day. This is not normal.
This is not normal.
No.
Yeah. No.
So this just really ruled my life. But, you know, it started from such a place of fear
Right.
of, I didn't know who I was. I mean, I think even from such an early age in my life, um, I think that I was a really big light.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, the world wanted to take that away from me. My dad was an alcoholic. The things were very crazy within the home. My mom was Jewish. We were raised Jewish and we lived in outside of Dallas, Texas. And it was like kind of like the Bible Belt. And so to be this like outsider who we didn't live like in the main like area of Dallas, we were in this like smaller town. So where we went to temple and things like that, where
Right.
other Jewish people were. We didn't have that in our town. So I was always like this weird little redheaded Jewish girl. and And so just like never really felt okay to be me. And then I also had some sexual trauma in my childhood that really took away my light. And so I think I was, with having this all taken away and then also being, an intuitive, someone who's
Right.
very clairsentient, like feeling lots of people's emotions. Um, this was a lot to take
Yeah,
on.
that's a lot. I mean, my listeners, I know a lot of them are very highly sensitive. They take on a lot of people's energy. And it's so easy to like mistake those for your own, and it takes control, and it's easy to spiral if you don't have the tools to understand that. And as a child, nobody's sitting with kids explaining to them like not everything you're feeling is yours. And that I think is such an important thing to start teaching our children is like learning how like we're all tied together. We're all connected. Sometimes what you're feeling, that anxiety, that fear, the depression, all these emotions that are so strong during those formative years are not necessarily yours. And how much a difference that would have probably made in your story, understanding that and knowing how to do the energetic hygiene to like clear what's not yours.
Yeah. My daughter laughs at me all the time because she'll come home from school and I'll like pull the Palo Santo out and like, here you
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you doing? And, thinks that this is so weird. And I'm like, she's extremely empathic and feels
Right.
so many people's things. And she's a teenager right now. So like she's feeling all the things.
Yeah, 10x.
Yes. So to grow up without any of this foundation of who we are and like that we are really just breezing through other people's energy. And you even told me this in my human design reading that I'm a
Yeah.
pool filter, right?
Yep, you have all of the pool filters for picking up other people's stuff. Regardless of what your chart says, we all are very sensitive to each other's energies. There's just some of us who are here for that purpose of helping other people clear their trauma, helping other people clear their karma. And Sari has like every marker
Of
for
course.
that on her chart. So yeah, she's here to help clean up this collective. She's one of those beautiful collective pool filters who are helping you take care of your stuff for sure.
Yeah. 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 So this was a lot to deal with as a kid. And
Yeah.
I was a dancer growing up. And so I was very much always looking for this like outside validation of like, am I the best dancer? Am I good enough? And it was never coming from within. And so I think these fears, and like needing to like make my world safe just kept like building and building and building through the years. And that's where the control came in. That's where, I always say anxiety is like the alert system that's turning on, telling you there's a lot of energy in your body that needs to leave.
That's magic if people understood that concept.
Right. And so it's not that like it's this horrible thing that's showing up. It's just, when we talk about emotion, energy and motion, this is all of that fear, all of that control, all of that really just for years kept wanting to leave my body. But I would just like add more fear on top of it instead of
Right.
really allowing it to release.
Yeah. Because
And
yeah, we sit in that space of like, I know what this feels like. This is comfortable. Even if it's chaotic, even if it's crazy, it's what we know.
right,
So letting that go, what does that look like? We're
right.
stepping into an
And
unknown and our ego freaks out.
right. And I think, luckily for me, being a dancer growing up, I did actually use a lot of somatic release in my dance
I'm
growing up.
sure.
But then, after like 20 years old, when I kind of stopped dancing for real, I think that's when the majority of the anxiety actually started showing up.
Oh, that's an interesting insight is because you no longer had that way of releasing through dance and movement.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
powerful.
And then to add on top of that, kind of what stopped my dancing career was there was always like this thing being a dancer of like, you're not skinny enough, your body type's not right, so then
Yeah.
constantly, drinking energy drinks, not eating, taking, diet pills, smoking cigarettes, all these things, and wondering why I'm having like heart palpitations at the same time.
Yeah, and
It's
nobody
just
back then was telling you that might be these things that are causing you anxiety.
right. right.
Right.
And it really just exacerbating what's already there. So it just kind of went on this turn to where things just got really crazy. And there were, because I was in so much fight or flight, in so much survival mechanism, that, it turned out I had hypothyroidism. Then it turned out I had another diagnosis of PCOS. And I just, at some point, I was like, I can't keep getting diagnoses. Like, this is
Yeah.
not healthy. This is no way to live. And then ultimately, the question I asked myself, which I think this is what I ask every single client that I even see, is, are you asking yourself, there has to be like more than what I'm experiencing right now?
Ooh. When we start asking questions like that, magic happens.
Right. And with that, I was at the point, I think with medicine, with so much in our world, everything is external. Like, we're trying to grab the external thing from the world to like save us.
Yeah, putting band-aids
Um,
on a like a artery split and we're trying to put a band-aid on it when it really
right.
needs to go in there, like clean the wound and really get to the root of it for sure.
Yeah. And when we do put band-aids on it, then we end up like leaking maybe from somewhere else even.
Right. Plug that
So,
hole, another one springs up.
yes, yes, right. Totally.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that like we have to start asking ourselves, the person that's coming to save us is the version of ourself that's really sick of the situation.
Ooh, I love that. That's powerful.
Right. And it's never going to be anyone else. And
Yeah.
so I always tell people, like, you're not ready to come work with me until you're really sick of your situation. Because for some people, hypnosis is very like woo woo. Like, it's not, I don't want to go into my subconscious and open up Pandora's box. Um, Only the people who are like, I don't know I don't know what else to do. I'm done with this. Nothing has worked. And that's kind of the situation that I had kind of gotten into,
Yeah. You're getting to the
was,
point where you're like, I'm done with my own shit. I'm like, this is it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's ironic too, because at one of my like dark nights of the soul, I actually decided to go see a hypnotist. And unfortunately, it didn't work out in my favor because, number one, I really doubted what was happening. Um, I didn't connect with the facilitator, which I think is a big,
That's a
big thing.
huge thing. Yeah. Yeah. You have to
You have
touch,
to feel safe.
especially when you're going into the subconscious mind.
Right. So, I think I like booked like three sessions and was like hoping for the best, but like all of this doubt and fear was also still living with it. And there was just no rapport. There was no follow up. And to me, when you're dealing with someone who has massive fear like this, like, number one, 3 sessions is never going to get rid of it. And number two, like, you're taking on a lot more than like just hypnotizing someone into like hoping they won't be fearful anymore. I don't know. It doesn't quite work like that. It's not stage hypnosis like a lot of people see. Like, there is a lot of trust. There's a lot of building. Even, most people's first session I have with them is really just about building hope. It's not, we're not even, we're not tackling anything. We are literally like, how can we get you out of this fight or flight response that you're in and into a different feeling, a feeling of possibility?
Yeah. Just moving up that vibrational scale just a little bit where they're open to receiving a
Right.
higher level
Right.
of frequency. Yeah.
Yeah. I started just really being an advocate for myself because
Yeah.
no one else was doing it. And I was looking it for so many places. And I think ideally I almost had to fail with all of these practitioners and counselors and all these things, because I had to learn that I had to advocate for myself. And that's what really started changing my world.
Yeah. So at what point did you find something that really cracked you wide open and helped you kind of quantum leap to where you are now?
Yeah. So I think it actually started when I got that second diagnosis, which was PCOS.
Yeah.
And a lot of PCOS is tied to blood sugar and
Yeah.
tied to insulin resistance. And if you've ever had experience having your blood sugar drop, you feel dizzy, you feel irritable, you feel shaky, you
Yeah.
feel so many things. And these were all symptoms of also my anxiety. So once I realized that these were also like working together in a way, and this is what was exacerbating the situation, I'd read a book that really just taught me how to eat for PCOS.
Yeah. Just these
Like,
small things make such a big difference. Why aren't these the conversations that we're having when we go to the doctor?
right.
When
And
we
no one offered me that.
No, like
No one.
and even just eating a little bit more protein. I also, funny backstory, I also had PCOS at one point in my life. So I understand all the things that you're saying. And it was one that, like, I changed my diet and I changed by just energy. Because at that point, I was like you, I was in fight or flight. I was way in my masculine, trying to control every single thing about my life. And yeah, as soon as I switched over to being more in my feminine energy and really paying attention to the food that I was putting in my body in a new way, like, I don't even test for it anymore.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And that's what I think that was the biggest thing was at that point, I felt so out of control. I was like, okay, so we've acquired another diagnosis, but if there's one thing I know that I can do and still be in control, it's control what I put in my mouth. And
absolutely.
I would say that at that time, my panic attacks probably had lessened about 30%, which
That's
for me
huge.
at that time, yeah,
When you're having
30% is
12 a day,
huge.
when you're having 12 a day, 30% is a lot.
Right. And most drug studies are only like maybe like 26%. So the fact that in just my own choosing, right? Like I'm going to
Yeah,
eat in this way. I'm going to take these supplements that are going to support me and do this. It was just like the stepping stone that I needed to believe that I found out all of this information on my own. We are living in a world of information right now. Sometimes it's too much, but
it can be.
do your research, right?
Yeah,
Like if you look it up, you can figure something out.
I'm sure you'll echo this. It's not going to be from your traditional sources, because the traditional sources are going to want to just continue to feed you medicines that are going to make you sicker, that are going to continue to exacerbate the problem, only giving you like 26% release, where you just literally just changed the food that you're putting in your body and got better results. So allow yourself to open your mind to seeing things in a new way. Ask the questions, be curious, and allow yourself to kind of maybe go into different areas that you wouldn't normally have gone to find results, to find answers. Some of the best things that I've done for my stack of diagnoses have been from things that had nothing to do with my doctor's office, and were all just me doing the energetic work or looking at the supplements, uh, other streams of possibility. And it was, I always say, curiosity is the most important thing to lead your life with. Be
Agreed.
open,
Agreed.
keep your mind
Agreed.
open. If you know it all, you have nothing to learn. And that's a really disenabling place to be.
Right. And we are so taught that like the white coats of this world, right? Like the doctors, like literally this one-upmanship of have to believe everything that they say. One of my husband's family members is a doctor and he laughs all the time. And he's like, to be a doctor, you just had to pass medical school. You didn't have
Yeah.
to be at the top of your class. Which again, so like,
These get
what kind of
degrees.
doctor are you getting? Are you getting
Yeah.
the one that like actually like medicine means the world to them, or like they just did this as a career and they're getting a paycheck?
They got it because they know doctors make good money. So that's what they
Right.
did. And
Yep. Totally.
you don't want that.
Totally.
And
No,
again, a lot of, like, even what they're taught in medical school is very limited.
it
They're
is.
not taught, holistic health. They're not taught nutrition. They're only taught, we could go in a whole nother direction of who actually funds medical school, but we won't go there. We'll just kind of go on to the
Right.
continuing this conversation of your healing process. But do your research. I'm not saying that there's not a place for medical,
Right.
for
There
modern
absolutely
medicine.
is.
There absolutely is. Definitely always have a doctor of some sort in your conversations, but look outside. Look for other things. Have it be a collaborative effort, not just like they're the only and one and only answer to what you're working with. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this, even same thing, like similarly, when I had the thyroid, things like I had researched and I wanted to be more on like the natural thyroid medication than the synthetic, but I was going to see an endocrinologist that like at the time was probably getting paid by that pharmaceutical company to hand out the synthetic drug versus me taking the natural desiccated one that was actually a little bit more loving to my body and had more of the hormones that I actually needed. And, the blood work would come back and they're like, "Oh, all of your tests are great." I'm like, "But I still feel awful. How is that? How can you correlate these things?" And my doctor's even now just being like, "We're not going to chase these numbers. It's about how you're feeling." And the fact that that question never comes across most doctors' mouths is just insane to
It's
me.
highly problematic.
Yes.
Right. And like, I mean, we can even go to the test scores because even the test scores, they're based on just the general population of 0 to 100. What are the results? Where's the medium? I don't want the medium. More than half of America or the world is not healthy. I don't want the medium of that. What are the optimal levels? I want those. I want my scores to be in the optimal levels. Like
Right.
that's where I want to work towards. So even just the way that we look at how things land on the blood work needs to be readdressed.
Agreed.
It's crazy.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get back to your real magic.
Yes. Okay. So
I mean, I'm such a nerd. I could talk about this forever, but like, let's
I
talk
know,
about your
but it's
magic.
important too. I
It
think
is.
people
I think
need
it is.
to
Yeah.
be hit with the nail on the head a little bit of like, don't trust everything your doctor says. I think going back to just the advocacy, like this was,
Yes.
the point of, okay, now I've done something for myself. I've researched these things. I'm actually getting some results. And it was just kind of really starting to begin to trust, to like follow the yellow brick road, Sari. Like, what is the next thing that's going to open you up? And the next thing was I started following the holistic psychologist, which is
Okay.
Dr. Nicola Pera. And she just had these brilliant like things that she would post on her Instagram that I was just like, that's me. I get that. Finding podcasts that had her on. And then one of the podcasts that I started listening to. And then that I found Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's who really started changing the game for me, because I heard about, he had this crazy testimonial story for himself about how he broke his back and he was paralyzed completely. And he was a chiropractor and he knew everything about the spine, and they wanted him to have this surgery and he wasn't going to have it. But like for 12 weeks laying paralyzed, he healed his back just by thought alone. And I was just kind of like, he started telling me what it was that was happening, not specifically to me, but like what's happening in our brains and bodies when we're having these chemical addictions to our emotions. And I was addicted to fear. I was addicted to worry. I was addicted to control. I was addicted to so many of these things. And I was addicted to my anxiety. And once I figured out that, I used to think that my anxiety attacks would just like pop out of nowhere. And I felt so out of control because of that. But what he gave to me, this was just so empowering, wasn't that they were popping out of nowhere. It was me actually creating them, because I had installed the hardware to be of anxiety. And
Right.
now
Yeah.
anxiety is like, okay, it's 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. It's time to have a panic attack. Right. Because my body knew how to do it more than my mind did. Just like we drive home from the store, we know how to get home without even thinking about it. My
Yeah.
body knew how to have a panic attack without me.
It's
And
the
that was so
power of the
empowering.
mind is so crazy. We are just scratching the surface of how much actual control we have of our lives and what we create for ourselves. And Joe Dispenza is such a fascinating person to study, with the healing of his back and the work that he's put out there in the world. Like, it's mind boggling when you really start to study this stuff. Like Neville Goddard, he's been around for ages, but like the power of creation within the mind space, when we set aside ego, when we really just truly connect to a divine source. I feel like that's a big missing part that I think some people miss, is that a connection to divinity, whether that be however you see that for yourself. But when you combine those two together and open yourself up, magic happens. Literal
Right.
magic.
Right. Literal. And I think that's what he gave me. So he had his book that I read, and it was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it came with all these journaling prompts and meditations with it that I did. And within 6 weeks, I had become a new person
That's
completely.
amazing.
And he was a hypnotist as well. And so I just kept hearing in my mind, like, what he did, the meditations he had were great. I was like, but in my mind, I wanted to be able to customize this for people to where they could have the same, like, aha, wow, reversal of self in a, 6 to 12 week period. But like to where we're focusing specifically on the thing that you need to work on, not just like a general idea of this. And so I just kept listening and kept listening. And that's what I turned into. This is absolutely the like core of my work is we're going to go in and yes, we're going to rewire and reprogram different feelings for you. But ideally it's what you said. And this connection to something. And at the time, I didn't even know what that was. But what made it, it was so cool because Dr. Joe's work is so science-based and
Yes.
he's doing so much research now where he's wanting to prove all of these mystical things that are happening to people in science. And he's
Yeah.
doing it and it's
He's
really cool.
Yeah, quantum science is fascinating to me because it's going in and like these things that we can't see on the, in the mind's eye and the logical side of our brain. They're proving all these things, even like my human design, like my flagship over here, like even that is being proven on the quantum physics level. So it's so cool.
Absolutely. And so, if you think about for me, I never had faith in anything. I was raised Jewish, but like I don't actually believe that I really believed in God. I don't think that I trusted that. I think being a kid who had trauma, who had
Yeah.
chaos in the house with my alcoholic father, like all of these things, like didn't believe that I could actually have something who cared about me and supported me. So that was really hard. And this is why all of this manifested. And so I had to go back and really rebuild what this connection was. But I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. But when we think about, our heart is beating as we speak. We're breathing as we speak. We're not telling our bodies to breathe. We're not telling our heart to beat, but like they're autonomically happening in this way. So that means that there has to be some sort of invisible intelligence that's creating these functions to work. Otherwise, how would they just work on their own? Right. I mean, same thing of like we put our food into our microwave and we press a button. We don't see it cooking, but like there are these invisible waves, microwaves cooking it,
Yeah.
right?
There's so much we don't see with our eyes.
Right. And so I had to believe that like if there was something running my breath, running my blood, running my heart, all of this, that there had to be some sort of invisible intelligence also supporting me. And that's also what I love building in my hypnotherapy sessions because all the things that we worry about are just, we're forgetting that we're connected to something.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think we kind of have that wounded religious thing in common, just in different ways. But like coming back to having a new, redefined connection to divinity was one of the most defining moments of my life because I was able to define that connection on my own terms without someone outside of myself telling me what it needed to look like and what it had to be like. And there's no middleman. There's never been a middleman. We have direct connection to source, to God, to spirit, whatever you want to call it. I believe it's all the same thing. We just have different names
Right.
for it. But when you're able to break free of having that middleman, you know, gatekeeping that relationship, you get to a whole new level when you're able to do that.
You do. You do. And it's a level of surrender, right?
Yeah.
It's a level of, I remember specifically like in my meditations, in my mind, he would say, like, surrender this to a greater intelligence. And I can remember just being like, okay, here's my pile of shit and I'm going to give it to you. And I'm done holding this and like trust that like
that they're going to take, and it's going to be transmuted and it's no longer yours to carry.
Yeah, and, like, that was one of the best feelings I've ever experienced, to literally, like to someone almost, like, in a way, asking you, like, "What can I hold for you?" And that's where the control really shows up, is thinking that we have to hold it all ourselves and that there's
Oh,
nothing supporting us.
and we are so beyond supported. We all have our own angels, our own guides, our own cosmic family, our own healed and healthy ancestors that are surrounding us. If we just open up ourselves to receive that insight, that wisdom, I think that's one of the coolest things. And I'm sure in the work that you do, you feel this too. Before every session that I do, I call in, whoever I'm working with, I call in their team, and I feel them so intensely surrounding me as I'm, a pure channel for this person, as I'm reading their chart and I'm receiving information for them. There's nothing but love. I've never had that experience where it's just, I feel so much love for this person that I'm reading for flowing through me. And like some of these guides are pretty funny, the stuff that they want me to say. I'm like, hopefully it makes sense to you because this is what's coming through. But it's just as fascinating to be able to feel that. I can't say that you don't have a whole team around you. I never can. Like, it's one of the most biggest privileges of my life to be able to open myself up in that way to help people receive this information, and it's available to everyone. It's not like I'm like over here, oh, I'm the only person who can get information from your guides for you. That's it's not what I'm saying here. You have that same ability, and I'm sure even with the work that you do, you have these experiences where you feel their team supporting you in the work that you do. I would love to hear how that looks like for you.
Yeah, I think it's, it's something that I've actually been working on. Like, I definitely absolutely channel in my sessions, but
Yeah,
it's
I could
different.
feel it absolutely when you were doing it.
It's not from a like, it's just from it's that, there we go, that sacral, right? Those
Right.
gut feelings of just really, to me, there's some sort of download that happens for me in sessions of being able to just so clearly see the blueprint and what you've placed yourself in. And to be able, like, that's just like one like holographic pattern, and
Right.
like once I like lift it off, I can actually see what the truth is beneath it. And again, it's just that gut feeling of like, this is the direction that we have to go in order to get you closer to that like lower level of truth.
Oh, I love that. I got like goosebumps. But it's so fascinating. I think that every single human on this planet has magic. I think we all have very unique spiritual gifts, and it's just opening ourselves up to be a channel for them, to allow us to, there is some, some semblance of surrender that's required. And like, you can't just go in and be like, oh, I'm in a channel now. Like that's, there's processes, and there's opening yourself up to be that for people. But when you do, it's crazy what
It
comes through.
is. It is.
It's wild.
And I think even that, right? Like, that's part of that kind of energetic hygiene you're talking about too, is like, these are things that like again, like I've also had to learn of in that same way. Like, it's not so much of like a seeing of like that their guides or ancestors are with me. It's more of, the emotional sense
Right.
of like at realizing after a session, like why I'm taking shit out on my husband because I haven't actually like cleared and cleaned the emotions that came through in a session, and I'm still holding them.
Right. That's so huge for anybody who is in any type of healing modality, whether that be cutting hair, even,
Mhm.
or doing anything where you're in constant contact with other humans throughout the day, whether that be digitally or, in working one on one with people in person, you're picking up other people's stuff all day long. People are connecting cords to you all day long. So having some type of practice where you're either saging or palo santoing or going out and stepping on grass, like having some type of, clearing is so needed on a daily basis, because I mean, it's really easy, but all of a sudden you're holding too much And then it goes into like what you're talking about, that anxiety and that fear. And it's like not even yours. You've just been holding everybody else's all day long.
Right. Yeah. And you know, hypnosis is so it's so cool, but also just like so crazy because we go through so many emotions
Yeah. And it's
and
heavy.
so much of that, yeah, is stored within our subconscious. But I think that's also what makes it so cool is I remember when I was going to school for it, and I'm a master imagery facilitator. So like I use a lot of imagery in my hypnosis. And I remember the first time I was going through this one course of imagery training, they were doing a demo, and the person that was, volunteered for the demo was literally like what came up for this person within 15 minutes of a hypnotic imagery journey is like to me like would take 5 years in like talk therapy.
Yeah.
And so just the access that we can have to so many things to get the relief, to get to start feeling better, to start training your body how you do want to feel. And this is, I think, whether it goes with channeling or anything, it's like a lot of us, especially like when you think of make believe, right? Like believing in Santa or not, it's like these kids, they want to believe, right? They want to see Santa, so they
Yeah.
want to believe. But in reality, it's the feeling that makes you believe. It's
Yeah.
that magical feeling. I mean, I still tell my kids today, I'm like, you stop believing in Santa Claus, the magic's going to go away. Like it's the feeling. Like all of a sudden now Christmas isn't going to feel quite as special because that feeling's gone.
Yeah.
It's not about whether he's a real person or not. It's about just the feeling of the magic that we want to keep alive. And that's what really creates those subconscious programs and patterns that create who we are.
Right. I mean, I say this all the time. A belief is just a thought you kept thinking.
Right.
And most of these beliefs that we harbor so tightly are just merely a thought we kept thinking. And there's really no basis for truth.
Yeah. And then we create a belief, then we begin behaving in that way.
Yeah.
And then we ultimately become a completely different personality. And that's, what happened with me with all of the fear. I became this personality of anxiety, of fear, of control. And I didn't like the way she looked. And I had to wake up one day and realize if I don't change this, my children are going to become this.
That's fascinating. When is the last time you've had a panic attack? Like, been free of this fear? I mean, obviously, we still have them. I still have like times where I just all of a sudden feel a whole bunch of panic, and it's from picking up other people's stuff usually, but just
Right.
curious.
I would say like maybe I've had like once a year, but they're still not in the like bigness of what they used to be. It's
Right.
more of now I'm witnessing that there's like some agitation. And even like I was at a retreat a couple weeks ago and I had an instance where I had a lot of energy moving through my body. And but even at the start, like the feelings that were coming up initially reminded me of a panic attack. And so I was kind of like just recognizing I'm kind of feeling anxious. Like, what is this? Like, and I was thinking like, okay, what did I have to eat? Is my blood sugar low? Like I'm going through all of these things. And then once I realized like this was just energy moving through my body and it was really just love and I leaned into it, it was really beautiful. It was like really amazing. And so there's still some of that old program in me that like wants to arise sometimes, but like now having the tools, having the awareness, right? Being
Yeah, there's
able
the
to
word
observe,
awareness.
yes, that like this is happening and this is not actually who I am. I can not let it take hold like it used to.
Right. And I think, that anxiety a lot of times, especially if you're in this, in a spiritual path, a lot of times anxiety can show up and feel very much like the old version of anxiety that you're very much aware of, but you're crossing over into new paradigms and new ways of being. And your ego is kind of like freaking out a little bit because you're crossing over into something different, something unknown, and that's going to look and feel like anxiety. So I feel like just adding some awareness to that and some understanding that not all anxiety is bad. Some anxiety is exactly that. It's just energy in our body that doesn't have an outlet. And our mind loves to have everything have a story. It likes to catalog and likes to make everything something. This is kind of a tool that I work with a lot of people, and especially in coaching, is I'm like, if you don't understand why you're feeling an emotion, or you don't understand why you're feeling a fear or an anxiety, it's probably not yours. So as soon as you start going into story building mode where you're like, okay, well, this happened and then this happened, and like you're trying to like fabricate a story, I like to say your brain goes into evidentiary support mode. As soon as you start doing that, you know it's not yours. And then you can open up that awareness and be like, okay, is it because I'm stepping into something that's new?
Yeah. And I think that, like, we had talked about this the other day, Andy, about like you giving these permission slips out and like how good that feels to receive that. And before you even said that to me, there was a book that I listened to by Lee Harris, and it was his
He's good.
Future Human book. And his guides, the Z's, were channeling the whole book, and they were talking about how, yes, we're picking up constantly like these energies of other people. And especially now, whenever I feel like, for the most part, I feel really good about who I am, and to begin to question when certain things arise. Like, let's just say, like, I go out and I'm feeling really confident, and I like feel like the way I feel, I like the way I look, and all of these things. And then all of a sudden, like, just this like whoosh of like insecurity just kind of comes in. And just to be able to recognize that, like, I wasn't feeling that 5 seconds ago, and to recognize that maybe that's not mine, or maybe, right, where all of these fears and anxieties came from as a child, maybe they were never mine. Maybe they were just me taking them on and trying to filter them, but not knowing how.
Yeah.
And just giving myself such permission that these things aren't necessarily who we are. And hopefully having the friends or loved ones or parents around us that can actually offer us that question of like, is that really yours, or did you pick it up?
Yeah. I feel like that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves, is like, is this really mine? And if it is yours, you'll know it's yours because you'll know immediately where it's coming from.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
not, then you're going to start trying to find that evidence. And if you're having to look for evidence, it's not yours. It's either, if you're an emotional, then you are on the emotional wave and you're writing an emotion and you're just playing with emotions. Or if you're non emotional, like Sari here, it is just you picked up somebody else's stuff.
So I have a question with that, because before we got on, we were kind of talking about how our energy wasn't quite where we maybe wanted it to be today.
Yeah.
And so, like, with that, like, if there are, certain energies kind of like transpiring in the skies for us, right? And you had said, like, sometimes, certain people with like different signs or placements like are affected more than others. And so, like, in this situation where I woke up today and I was like not feeling in my like highest energy, and my body was just like telling me I needed to lay down, all of these things, like, that's not like, there's the trusting that I need to actually just honor myself and do what it's asking, but also, are there things happening in the skies that, like, is that yours in a way?
Oh, yeah. I get what you're asking. So we both kind of were like feeling like this was a soft girl day. Like we just needed to chill. Like we weren't feeling our high energy self. For me, that's more common as a projector. She's a manifesting generator, so she constantly has a lot more energy than, everybody else. The stars are always at play. When we look at astrology, when we look at transits, and where, depending on where our personal planets are, where things are in the sky, they affect us. They affect how we are and how we show up. And I try to just allow it, and this is where it gets sticky with astrology, because you can have one of two, like you can go on TikTok and you can scroll for 5 minutes, especially if you somehow now have astrology showing up in your For You page. There are people who astrology is an excuse for everything in their life.
Right.
You're angry today. Mars is in, Scorpio, you're a Scorpio moon. That's why you're losing your shit. Like,
Yep.
okay, all right, I'm a Scorpio moon. It's affecting me and I feel that. But at the same time, we are always, and end of sentences, we are the writer, director, creator of our own lives. We can take that as information and understand that we're going to be a little bit more sensitive right now. But it doesn't have to control us. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, that awareness. Okay, I know that Scorpio moon is going to be buttoned up against my moon in my 12th house. So like, I'm probably going to have some subconscious beliefs for me to look at right now. And it might be a little bit more intense with those right now. I'm aware of it. So it doesn't derail me. I'm going to be a little bit more, open to self-sabotaging behaviors right now. I'm aware of it. Right? That's what I want people to take away with astrology, because sometimes it's so easy for it to become a crutch and an excuse in our lives instead of what it is meant to be, which is just basically a weather forecast. Okay, cool. It's going to rain today. It's going to be a rainy day. I'm going to have my umbrella.
Are you going to let it ruin your day?
Yeah.
Because it's going to rain today.
Right. I'm going to pack an umbrella. I'm going to make the necessary adjustments knowing that that's the weather for today. But I'm not going to let it rule my day. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. And that's the biggest, and most empowering thing that I can tell for people who are new to astrology and all of a sudden they're like inundated with all this fear. Because unfortunately, a lot of people in the astrology community are very fear-based, and it can be really low vibe, which I do not love. But again, it's just a weather report.
I love that.
Treat it as such.
Love that. Yeah.
And then prepare.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to like the piece of, what I love to empower people to really listen to is, are you even letting those things forget who you really are? Right.
Yes.
And like having the practice or awareness or something that you're doing that is connecting you back to your truth, your alignment, who you are. And that's more the work than anything.
That's always the work. And with what you're doing is you're really able to okay, sometimes these subconscious beliefs that we have within our subconscious mind that we created usually within the first 7 years of our life that are ruling our life. We have this little human in us who is calling the shots based on beliefs that were held in those first 7 years. And what's so cool is you are able to go in and really talk to those beliefs, talk to that little version of ourselves, and just be like, okay, I understand that that's how you interpreted that situation. Let's look at it with new adult eyes, with maturity, with patience, and with kindness and compassion. And let's choose to see it different so that we have different outcomes. For example, in my session with Sari, I had a memory of my sweet dad. And I love my dad. He has always been my biggest cheerleader. But in this memory that came to the front and center, it was a time when I used to love to get up and talk in church because I like to shine. I like to get up there and be the center of attention. And
says the project herself.
Says the projector. I like to be seen. And I loved when I would come, afterwards where I was like, oh my goodness, we loved your testimony. We loved hearing what you had to say. It was a way for me to be seen and to be acknowledged for my light. And that was at that time in my life, that was only one of the few places I could do that. Right. So I remember, and I would do this every month I'd get up there. And one day I sat down and my dad's like, can you not do that every month? Not everyone wants to hear you every month. And it broke my little heart. And that is one of my first really traumatic wounds against visibility and allowing myself to shine and to be seen in my light. And then, and I know, and through the work with Sari and our session, I was able to really see it through my dad's eyes and truly what his intention behind that moment, how he obviously never wanted to hurt me. But in that moment, I was very hurt.
Yeah.
And it was a really heavy, and I didn't understand the gravity of that interaction and how much that interaction had actually held me back in a lot of ways. But because of the work that we did, we were able to reframe it. We were able to see it in a new light. I was able to see it in a new light. And it was interesting to me also. Like my little tiny Andy was like, we need to be more playful. We need to act, which I thought was interesting that she used the word act, because it then again brought more memories of me like creating these characters for my family and like loving to put on a show. And that's something that I may or may not step into more on social media. The jury's still out if I'm going to be brave there or not.
Oh, you are.
I
You
am. I
are.
am. We're working on it. But it's there's a playful, fun side of me that I have because of moments like that we don't even know those were that effective unless we're able to tap in with the work that Sari does to really kind of see those in a new way, reframe them, and really heal from them. So these stories and these beliefs that we've held no longer have the power that they once had. And did I even know that that was something that was holding me back? I didn't.
Right.
I vaguely remembered it, but I didn't know the weight that it had. It's
Right. And these
crazy.
are the things that like, they're just so the subconscious. I mean, I was talking to my husband the other day. There was a song that somehow came up in my mind. I hadn't heard it probably since I was 8 years old. And I don't even know who sings it, but the song is Simply Irresistible.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know
yeah.
that song?
Yeah, yeah. I remember it.
And it had like, it took me back to a place, I think it was when I was a dancer or something, that like this song just came up. And somehow like I knew all the words, right,
Yeah, of
to the whole chorus. And I'm like,
course you
this
did.
isn't a song that I've heard in, 30 years. And I was talking to my husband, and I was like, it's so crazy because we have these neurons in our brain. And think of like all of the neurons that you have for every song you've ever listened to. And like they're installed in your brain so that that one time you need to remember the words to that chorus, it comes up, right? But it's not something you think about. So in the same way, right? Like this programming that you had of that one time, like it was also stored in there with all of those things, but also like it's like little buddy of neurons maybe had a little bit more strength than like what that song might have, and had a little bit more power in the choices and the way behaviors and the ways that you had become. And so that's not something that's going to be on the forefront of your mind. That's why we call it the subconscious, because it's literally sub level, and it's not something that we have access to all the time, but it is running the show. And so having a safe space and doing these journeys like this allows it to come up.
Yeah. And that is the magic of hypnotherapy. And you think you can't do it on Zoom. Sari holds such a beautiful space where you're like, I immediately was like, well, it did not take me long. But I also trusted Sari. So I think that makes a huge difference, is like
It does.
working with somebody that you absolutely trust in this capacity. This has been such a beautiful conversation. I was so excited to have you on the show. Even with our low energy at the beginning, I think we still knocked out a pretty good episode.
Totally.
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 Totally. Before we go, if you were to explain what your piece of the collective puzzle was, what would that be?
I think my piece of the collective puzzle is to embody and also to share with the world that our vulnerable parts are not bad, and that it's okay to show them, because when you show them, you show that you are human. And we need this world to feel human.
Yes, we do.
And so to invite everyone to actually start feeling and to stop suppressing.
Ooh, I love that so much. Okay, Sari, how can everybody find you?
Well, you can come check out me on the Uncharted Way podcast.
Yes.
There's Andy's going to be there as well eventually. Um, And there's really great solo episodes that I'm doing now based strictly on anxiety, fear, and control. If you need help, this is like a dear diary to my old self. So I'm giving that version of myself all the resources that she ever wanted. So come check those out. You can check me out at thegrowthgoddess.net. You can book a freedom roadmap session there if you want to explore what hypnotherapy looks like. I also hang out on Instagram at the.growth.goddess. So
I will make sure all those are in the show notes. Until next time, much love.
much love.